TNT Mondays to find the truth.
You're the last person to have seen her alive.
Deputy Chief Brenda Lee Johnson is always one step ahead.
Let her wrap up these murders so that you can once again look like a hero at her expense.
But in the Closer's powerful new season,
I need to interview every member of your division.
the truth is finally catching up with her.
He sicked Raider on you so you could take all the blame.
How about I just quit?
If that's what you want to do, quit.
All new episodes of The Closer, Mondays, only on TNT. We know trauma. If you know the crimes,
We have a murder with a head bashed in.
then you should know it's all still here. From the creators of The Closer,
Deal or no deal?
Major Crimes premieres Monday, August 13th at 10 on TNT.
It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show.
Welcome all. We're long overdue for another movie and TV show breakdown. So, given that, we've had all kinds of just fun, just procedurals, gangster, horror anthology, sci-fi space operas, and even just comedic group retrospects. And so we're doing that circling around. Is like you're not going to find many podcasts talking about the hit TNT cable TV show The Closer and its continuation, Major Crimes, which is weird because so many people know about it or have seen it or are obsessed with it. So we're going to set the record straight, as we always do. It's like someone's got to talk about it and explain its greatness. So I brought in superfan Lila Morrill. Welcome.
Hi there, Cameron. How are you?
Wonderful. How about
It
yourself?
does seem like a travesty that there's not a podcast going over it.
I've seen Mary
I know there's a
McDonnell
lot
do
of
one,
podcasts
but that
go
was
over
like
different.
near the end of the run, just interviewing her co-stars and other actors she admired. And it's like, well, yeah, but it'd be cool to do maybe like a season 2 summary or something, because this show is not that ancient. It's not that obscure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean it's in the 2000s. It's not even like something from all the way back from the 90s. I mean, so it's.
I don't intend to question him. I intend to watch him confess. Just think of it as an early Christmas present from me to you.
Get The Closer while you can, just in time for the holidays. All new, starting Monday, December 7th, followed by the series premiere of Men of a Certain Age, only on TNT.
So it is kind of sad and all that there's not more podcasts like devoted to it and all that. So, but
Yep. The original Closer ran for 7 years. Major Crimes ran for 6. So altogether, let's just say the show ran for 13 years. And it is still streaming on HBO Max. It can be purchased on Amazon and Vudu. And there are DVDs which feature many making ofs and bloopers.
yeah. So which always adds to all the fun. Especially
Absolutely. Serious show, man.
Yeah. When you're looking over dead bodies, that's always a serious content type of thing. So
Totally. So I got all the rankings and titles rewritten down because it always changes up. But altogether, it originally followed Deputy LAPD Chief Brenda Johnson, played by Kyra Sedgwick, who was a transfer from Atlanta and trained by the CIA. She has decided to, again, close every single case in LA. And
yeah, that is her own obsession. Well, not her only obsession, but her main obsession. other than the junk food being her
Right.
second obsession.
You
But
see her exercise in like 2 episodes, so I'm like, I guess she's running around. Obsessed with her cats and her husband, FBI agent Howard. It's interesting just seeing how everyone is so in admiration of her as well as intimidated by her. And so it follows, I'm going to use their current ranking. Also, Assistant Chief Taylor, Lieutenants Flynn and Provenza and Tile, SIS leader Lieutenant Cooper, Detective Sanchez, Sykes, Dr. Morales, Special Ops Deputy Chief Howard. Yeah, you're right. After he leaves the FBI, he becomes an overseer. And FBI agent Morris and Rader's ex-husband turned lawyer Jack. Brenda is later replaced by LAPD Captain Sharon Radar, who used to be an internal affairs officer. And altogether, their methods include sending the perp straight to prison or to cut a deal, all to avoid the death penalty and save the city money, as well as just close the case. No cold cases.
yes. Yeah, cold cases is not a thing in Brenda's world, basically.
Oh, totally. And I see some people do the whole I'm team Brenda, I'm team Sharon, and I'm like, it's so different. Like, it's lucky it even worked. Like, that I can't compare and contrast either one. They're both, all both. Go ahead.
Well, they're both unique in their own personalities, obviously.
Yeah, it's for me, it's like all the Law and Orders. They're so like, do you want Jeff Goldblum or Vincent D'Onofrio? Do you want all these other Rollins or Maloney? Is like they're all awesome. I don't. I like them all in their own way. I think it helps that many of them have worked together before on like some of John Sayles movies, as well as some other independent films together. Like Raymond Cruz and Tom Berenger were coincidentally both in Training Day. And I'm like, okay, interesting.
That's some good facts to bring to the table.
Yeah.
So.
I had to even add some of my own trivia. I'm like, I know there's something to talk about here.
Which is great, I never, well, I like Brenda a little bit, slightly more than Sharon, only because of the twang. I love her little twang type of thing.
She's a very naturalistic. She's not just a hick stereotype. I saw some people who were annoyed by it. I'm like, she actually studied, actual dialect.
Yeah, I never thought of her as a quote unquote hick type of thing. I mean, I just felt like the accent for some would be kind of like that Southern hospitality that draws people in.
Yeah, it's like a less hostile version of the characters on Justified.
Yes, exactly. And, or if you have like somebody from New York or portraying a character of New York and they have that, hey, what do you need? What do you want? That coming at you type of thing, where she's like, oh, sweet. I'm like, thank you, that type of thing. Even though she's actually meaning something else, but the way that it comes off, if you don't know her very well, then she's like, oh, that's just endearing and all that. So, so I think that Southern twang kind of tries to use it to comfort people in a way, like initially type of thing.
It was very helpful.
Good.
You're always saying I need to listen to outside opinions more, and the opinion of our best psychiatrist is that I'm ready to go back to work.
Really? Ready for work? That's what she said?
Yeah, more or less.
Huh. To Chief Pope from Dr. Leonard, R.E.U. Deputy Chief Johnson is not fit for full investigative duties. She is exhausted, disconnected, distracted, and in denial of deep emotional issues. Allowing Deputy Chief Johnson to resume a full workload could put her and other members of the LAPD at risk.
Well, that is just nuts.
According to the department shrink, so are you. But since making you stay at home will only make matters worse, Greg Pearson, reporter for Channel 8, wants to do an investigative piece on the LAPD.
Oh,
I know, but this is a good one. He wants to draw attention to how overburdened and understaffed we are, and that's a story we need to get out there.
So you want me to talk to this reporter?
I was thinking a ride-along with the deputy chief and head of priority homicide might be a nice gesture of cooperation. Pick Pearson up at his office. And Brenda, I know he looks like a ninth grader, but he's very sharp, so please keep your answers as simple and clear as possible.
Are you seriously giving me advice on how to handle an interview?
Yes, I am. Just please don't make news.
But yeah, I mean, both in their own right are incredibly strong women, leading a group of men, which is, nice to see.
A lot of them are kind of the boomers kind. They're saying a lot of outdated stuff and politically incorrect stuff, and it's like, come on, guys, get it together here. And Sergeant Gabriel, who's only on the closer, is interesting because he kind of brings up a lot of just how you disagree with your boss, without losing your cool.
Yeah, he kind of tries to be the way they write him, which I love all the characters, I gotta say. But
oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few times where he's been kind of the moral compass. As I want to do this, chief, especially the one where they dropped off the gang member at the house.
Oh my god.
And girl was like, are you sure you want to do this? And
Detective Daniels was also dating Gabriel, and she's like, hey, you guys, you don't have your shit together.
Yeah,
and I do see the show still recirculated on regular TV. You can see it on Start TV, which airs reruns of other female themed TV shows like Brazilian Isles and Crossing Jordan. And I find it interesting because it's not a tough to edit show. Like for cable, as far as they went, it was still TV-14. They just had extra use of shit, but the crimes were really no different than a typical Bones episode.
Yeah, and I mean, there was a few where it's kind of gory, but even a lot of the stuff.
You can tell some of the characters that are prosecuting are rapists and dangerous drug dealers, but at least I feel like they're characterized more often than not. You're gonna know who did what, but you're not gonna know why they did it. So you're still in suspense for those last 20 minutes,
But yeah. Well, even with the like some of the gorier stuff that they could have seen, that they could show and all that, sometimes they'll just like, we'll have it under the yellow tarp and all that, and they'll kind of peek at it and they're like, oh no, you don't want to look at that type of thing or whatever. So
that is funny when they're in the CSI room and they're all trying to not lose their lunch. Oh,
yeah. They did, whoever they have for a I'm trying to think of the word, where they have a somebody like from a police department that they help on the set to create the atmosphere and everything. They actually did a really, really good job of a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, kind of like Bosch. I bought a lot of it, even with the Shield, which had limited research. I felt like there was still, you could see some variation of this existing in real life, as opposed to, okay, they've rushed it. This technically is a process that takes 2 months.
Yeah, obviously, we don't get DNA back that quick and all that.
Some of these might be a mistrial, but we'll never hear about it.
I am a civilian with. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
As long as it feels like it's trying. That's really all I worry about. If it gets to, okay, this was one-sided, or the character just wants blood, and like, okay, I don't need time for bloodlust.
Yeah, they do a lot of good stuff as far as representing the forensics part of it.
Yeah, Dr. Morales, that Hugh, the good Borg from Star Trek. There's a lot of Star Trek actors, and apparently James Duff wrote for a lot of those shows also. So that's kind of the in joke. He would bring a lot of people in. you have Jerry Ryan, 709 herself is that one antagonistic lawyer who represents all the infamous criminals. You have so many other ones, and you're like, oh, that guy.
Yeah, the guest stars on there, I mean, they have a really great list of guest stars. Of course, my favorite is well, I love Billy Burke as Philip
Phyllis
Stroh.
Stroh, the lawyer turned serial killer, and I mean, he's done villainous roles like that before. And kudos to Michael and Robin. He and Greer Shepard formed their own production company years ago, and they produced. He started off as a director and producer on NYPD Blue. He was part of the Stephen Bochco factory, and then once he had success with Nip Tuck and the New Dallas, he just formed all his other procedurals for TNT. The Closer Major Crimes franchise was kind of one of his own, but he then created his production company, then crafted Rizzoli and Isles and Longmire for Netflix. It's like, see, so, and he's still going. He's always got something going, and he seems to repeat, and it's the best kind of blended milkshake that he knows how to do. Show different perspectives, show a very naturalistic crime, and then find a way to do a very compelling two-parter.
Yeah, and it's I like the where the setup, most of the time you don't know who did it.
Yeah.
And they give you 2 to 3 people of which, and you're not really sure which way it's going to go,
It's
and
a
everything else.
half-truth. You're like, okay, kinda.
And then you watch it unfold, and there's a couple of red herrings at first, and then you're like, oh, wait a minute, it's that one. No, oh no, it's this one, and stuff. So I like that. I mean, there are the shows that show you the murder first and who the murderer is, how connected. But I prefer the ones where you have to kind of go for the ride and see it through their eyes,
Right.
to see all the clues that they're seeing in real time.
There's no fancy, CSI Criminal Minds edit where it's like, okay, I saw this, a variation of this. It's no Rashomon style where I'm hearing, 6 different takes of the same story and I'm still in doubt. It's like, okay, we're going to get these guys all in a room together, or together and just compare facts. And I think it just helps that because a lot of them I don't ever feel like the show's got any political or propaganda agenda. It's just kind of in that gray area where it's like, okay, this guy, is on the record as intimidating people. We're going to deal with this now. This is, it ends here.
Yeah. It I mean, the only time, there was a couple things where they, touched on a little bit of hot button issues type of thing, but not for. I mean, when
eventually it will come up. It's like, okay, this person performed an abortion, or they're a white supremacist gunhead, or an abusive husband, but we can't prove it because he's covered his tracks. We can't find any bruises on his significant other.
Yeah. And the guy that at the mall doing the bombing.
Oh, that was insane. They will have some diehard Dog Day Afternoon type standouts once in a while, like any good procedural. I also found it interesting that some of the writers also worked on NCIS in 24, so I think that's why there's some of that same just wacky office humor. And at one point, they even had some other actors and actresses, including the late Andy Wersching, who was on 24. And I like when they're taking down that one giant white supremacist terror cell who's like selling guns and everything, and on major crimes. And I like how they asked one of the agents, is like, where do you used to work? And she's like, CTU. I'm like, I see what you did there.
Yeah, well, Easter eggs are always fun, where you're just like, it's always a little connection type of thing.
How about when they're going after? I like how there's like some typical like LA scams that they mention every once in a while, and they brought them up, and they're like, oh yeah, we caught this jewelry thief in the act, and this other place which is actually a scam for plastic surgeons. And I like how they had some celebrities actually appearing as themselves. You're like, oh, you look like Paula Poundstone. That is comedian Paula Poundstone.
Yeah, it is they do try to be a very clever show, which,
Very
but
much.
not of like, oh, too clever that you're kind of like, hey, I feel alienated. So it's almost like their little wink to the camera type of thing to the fans and all that. So
Thank you.
I mean, I love the balance between the drama and the humor, and I mean,
We need it, man. We need it.
I mean, oh, for sure. And then with, of course, Provenza and Flynn, whenever they're together, I mean, it's gold.
They should have had their own spinoff, but
Oh,
I get
I
it.
agree.
Hello, Sergeant.
Hey, Chief. Good to see you back.
Yoo-hoo, Lieutenant Provenza.
Pope asked me to drive you and Greg Pearson around and to free you up to talk to them, so...
Pope? He's your buddy now, huh? You don't have to call him Chief Pope? I suppose he signed you to babysit me? Where y'all going?
Nowhere?
Has there been a homicide?
Yeah. And this one's pretty interesting, too, Chief. Dead body found inside a room that's locked from the outside. Now, inside, there are no windows and no locks.
Really?
No. Some Academy Award-winning writer found dead in the Hollywood Hills. Probably OD'd.
It was only a nomination. He didn't actually win.
You want to come along?
What's the address?
If you give her that address, I swear to God, I will tell Pope. Chief Pope.
Sorry, Chief.
Well, I'm driving.
Actually...
I agree.
P.W. Bailey's gotten up there, but I think, Tony Dennison, what's funny is he had a funny story, I think, on Mary McDonnell's podcast. No, it was another podcast also where he talked about getting over gambling and drinking while being a struggling actor. And he talked about that first year when Kyra Sedgwick got the, Emmy nom for Best Actress. That was like the one moment in the sun for that show. And people who had seen him for years on other shows like Jag and what have you, is like they still recognized him as a dangerous mobster boss on Michael Mann's Crime Story. And so all the Sopranos guys are at their tail. They're like, hey, come over here. And he's like, okay, I guess I'll hang out with the cool guys. But despite the lack of award noms, I think this is very much like Suits. It just shows, hey, the show will always be around here. There's always going to be people who get hooked on it. And I think it just is very telling that they're, like you say, the chemistry with everybody is just so dynamite.
Yeah, it definitely deserves a lot more spotlight and a lot more love. It's just all of the characters on the show, they just gel so well. And I mean, I want more of their backstories, and I like that they do bring some backstories to them a little bit here and there. Where Sanchez ends up, helping out with the kid, and when his brother gets shot and all that, and you have Tao's son who is helping out at one of the camps and stuff, so you learn a little bit about him. And it just,
and Rusty in just having kind of a man who, you want to talk about trafficking and trying to stop exploitation of children, just an unlikely, troubled kid who's not always misbehaving, and finally they get him to just kind of open up and restructure his life. It's like, see, so there's some hope here.
The Rusty storyline, even going over to Major Crimes.
You're right. It starts the finale like closer, and then they wrap it up again on Major Crimes.
Yeah. So, and I also like the idea of throughout where they also hit subjects that don't get a lot of attention, like, where you have two of the characters are in AA.
Yes.
So Provenza and Fritz are,
let alone one of them keeps getting jumped there.
Yes.
Even Breaking Bad fans should check this out just to see just how diverse an actor Raymond Cruz is. People go, hey, Tuco, it's like, and I had seen him in plenty of other, movies and shows. He almost always, I think he's kind of one of those actors, kind of like Lou Diamond Phillips. He just somehow was able to shake a lot of the ethnic stuff by having some other stronger roles. More often than not, I often saw him in numerous blockbusters like The Rock and Under Siege and Broken Arrow, just playing Marine type roles. And, I think it helped that he had guest spots on other shows like CSI and Star Trek Deep Space Nine. But he's even the delivery boy in Gremlins too. But
Yeah,
I
it's
think I don't think it's even just the
when
handsome looks.
I was super excited when G.W. Bailey came on because, of course, I knew him
Police
from
Academy.
Yes, I loved all of those movies, so I was just like, "Oh my god, it's the guy from Police
He's playing a
Academy."
nut, but this time it's not a spoof.
Yes, yeah, he's still a cop, but he's actually made it up the ranks now. But so
So nutty.
it's a lot of fun. Like when they're gonna do like the goofy episode, you can kind of tell from the beginning and score if it's gonna be one of those episodes where it's just gonna be a lot of comedy gold and all that.
Right.
And then the other opening score when it's just all that drama right from the beginning. You're like, oh, this is one of their real serious ones. I think the biggest crime is that they didn't have Jason Amora much. He only because he just kind of popped in as the pyromaniac guy.
That's right.
Yeah, because she never caught him in an act type of thing. He was always kind of like suspected and all that, and he was just incredibly creepy, showing up at her house and stuff like that. And I mean, the way that he played it, and he was.
I loved how they
just
had
plain Dracula.
Oh, totally. I loved how they had that. They had Adam Arkin as the group of twins who don't realize, is like, oh, you're not twins. This guy's just an imposter. He looks like you.
Yeah.
They had Jared Burns as a very like creepy hitman who did like a murder suicide. And you're like, oh my god. I think the one that stuck with me that was just hysterical because it was on both shows was Andrew Daly. I just being a fan of his comedy, and he's being a guy who impersonates a cop because he's just not sane in the head. He thinks for legit, I'm a cop. I'm like, no, that's illegal. Don't do that.
Yeah, that was Richard Tracy, right?
I think so. I think that was
because he was Dick. Yeah, he was hysterical. I was, I do love that episode. That is one of my favorites. When the Chief Pope is on there, on the first time he pops in, and Chief Pope's like, "Oh, you're doing a great job, better than Provenza and Flynn and all that." And
it's like we got to play to his ego just so we have to stop taking his calls.
Oh my gosh, yeah, no, that is such a great character. So, all the guest stars that have my favorite too is Jennifer Coolidge.
Oh, that's right. She was on here.
Yeah, she was phenomenal. Where Provenza was hired by her to kill her husband by the hitman type of thing, and then all the evidence gets stolen in the car, in the trunk car, because they went out to lunch and everything, and then so then they had to try to find all the evidence back and all that. So that's
very messy. One episode that I kid you not just seemed to always be replaying on TNT was the episode. I think it's like season 2 or 3, maybe 1. I don't know, but where Provenza and Flynn are like going to a baseball game. Yeah, they find a dead body randomly in someone's house, and they're like, "Oh, we can report it later."
It was in his garage because Flynn's car broke down, so they were going to take Provenza's car and all that, and then there's the body in the garage,
and they're like, "You think I can cover this up just because the blue line? No, fuck you. You're gonna get suspended with pay, and we're gonna deal with this later. But don't you ever do that shit again."
That's it. No, it's a baseball. Yeah, that was also a really, really good episode. The two of them, anytime that they were gonna be together, I was just like, "Oh, this is gonna be great," So
but he overcomes his preconceptions of the world too. He marries a beautiful black gal who's a little younger than him. Flynn also finds happiness, and I never expected it to be, hey, he's gonna have a stroke issue, and Sharon and him are also going to be a thing. And like, okay, interesting. And Sharon is interesting because it's like when you come up, they have her as the opposing force, and you're like, I don't know how they're going to make her likable. She's just kind of trying to make her career work, and it's like, no, she's doing her job. She's just very aggressive because she's encountered so many bad cops, and why should I treat this person any different? And then my parents summed it up best. It's just so funny how it's like when she sums it up, like she's talks very softly, and when you're finally not paying attention to her, that's when she raises her voice. We won't talk about this anymore.
Yeah, we
everybody, she's America's grandma.
Yeah, she's great on it. When they first do introduce her, as basically going after Brenda, of course, then you're like, oh well, we love Brenda, so we need to hate type of thing. So she's
Brenda politics now. Oh shit.
yeah, she's Brenda's adversary, and it's just like, oh, okay. And then where they finally find a way to kind of work together and everything, and where Sharon's like, hey, I'm not really trying, I'm trying to just do my job, I'm not personally going after you,
right?
This is what
I don't even know you guys. I'm just doing my job.
Yeah, like I so
I've heard everything. Literally, I've heard everything. And I kind of can't blame her actually for being a hard ass in some of the cases she does, because some of them are the ones where you're just like, oof, that does look suspicious. Why were you there at that scene? And we still got a bunch of that finger pointing nowadays where it's like, hey, 5 witnesses identified you as there. Why were you there? Cop or not. And it's like, well, everybody, you pretty much, if any of these shows remind you, is like always have an alibi.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes. Alibis are good. If you're single and you don't have a lot of friends, it's kind of tough. So at least do a login or something online. Play some gaming online. At least then it's like, oh no, I was gaming and all that. So at least something.
Oh, totally. And Major Crimes, I think, did a good job. Instead of just showing a one-sided view on, they never really had anything involving video games, but they did have some. They did bring up how there was a lot of unusual hate crimes that weren't just racial. It was also, targeting transgendered, and some of those were just so heartbreaking. Especially when they had montages of them all reacting to it, and it's just like, can't hold back tears anymore. This is too much for anyone. And to just see all these victims suffering.
Yeah. Well, I'm a civilian with the police department, and I've been on 24 years. And watching the show, there's even the politics that they introduce in the show, and even some of the forensic stuff. Actually, all the forensic stuff was pretty much close to what's actually real and stuff. So they did a really good job of capturing of what a police department is really
them
like.
And Rosali pretty much all went by the whole, hey, give them extra time. It wasn't like CSI where we're super cops and we got comic book logic on our side.
Yeah. And it's just like when Chief Pope pulls out the organizational chart.
I forgot to mention him. So yeah, J.K. Simmons is the original chief, and man, his dry humor was perfect for this.
Honestly, one of the things that, when I would talk to my mom about the show, I would talk about Pope all the time. I was like, oh my God, I love him. He's great. And then, of course, he went off to do so many things. Anyway, from the M&M's guy to Whiplash, he's just a
He's another veteran of the Law and Order family, but then you see all these other movies, and then it was around the same time he was in Spider-Man as the head of the journalists.
He just does everything great and everything, and so to have so many seasons with him and seeing him every week is like that's a gift to the universe, basically. But one of the things was he pulled out an organization chart when the new chief was, Chief Delk was going to be announced.
Wow.
And I was laughing because we get those organizational charts all the time. Every time there's a show, Yeah, what at the beginning of the year we get the organizational chart, and then when there's a whole bunch of shakeups where somebody gets promoted or whatever, and they get we get those through emails all the time. So I was cracking up that they had one. So I was like, oh yeah, they definitely did their homework as far as police work and all the shakeups and everything. So because
Sweet.
you know, a lot of politics, that inner politics that are going on.
I believe it. I used to work for the airport. I'll keep it neutral so they don't take it as a diss. But yeah, there's almost always just like 5 different like areas, and almost all of them end up wanting to just kind of blame the other instead of help out the other. And it's like, guys, y'all got to work together instead of just saying, now it's your problem. Okay, I'm off the hook. You do it. Just never works.
I will say one of the possibly the most unbelievable thing that I thought
implausible
of is where Brenda kept fighting. And I understand how I understand that's how her character is, but she would keep fighting for the case. This is my case. This is my case. This is my case, and my murderer and everything. I mean, at the police department, we're like, oh no, I think it's violent crimes. No, it's gonna be homicides today. No, it's gonna be there and all that. So there's a lot of times where they're like, no, it's your case. No, it's your case and all that. So
that
was probably
when the new chiefs come in who don't last long, like Courtney B. Vance.
A lot of times we're kicking cases back and forth to the different bureaus and all that. And
I wouldn't be surprised. It's just there for dramatic effects. And I get it. You know, they want to keep it interesting, but it's exaggerated. And all I ask is that at least I feel like they're talking like some kind of procedurals.
Yeah. And they're definitely the thing with this, if you remember the episode where they took the skin off one of the bodies and they put it on her as a glove so she could fingerprint. So the dead body is the skin of the hand of one of the bodies. They put the skin on Brenda's hand because she had the smallest hand, and then they've rolled the prints for fingerprints. That's actually a real thing.
Oh, wow.
As creepy as that sounds, but that has happened. Where they'll take the skin off of a body where it's hard to get prints off of that body, and they'll put it on one of the humans that are living, and they'll use it to roll the prints and stuff. So when they did that, I was like, oh wow, yeah, that's crazy that they actually included that. So, but that's an actual real thing. So, so yeah, so there were some things where I was like, oh man, they got that right and everything. So there's a lot of good things in there that I was like, okay, that's pretty close to what actually happens in real life and all that. So
that's nice.
I do. Yeah. There was one where they were blowing I believe it was iodine, where Tao is
Tao
blowing
was great.
iodine through a straw on a glove to get fingerprints. And I was.
And Michael Paul Chan is so active in all these Facebook
and that's
groups.
A real thing. That would.
Yeah, that was perfect casting for that actor. I had seen him be in so many movies as a hitman or liquor store guy, you know, stuff like Falling Down and Dolph Lundgren movies. And it was awesome to see him in a more respectable role here. I love when they're investigating a Chinatown murder on a bus and they're like, what are they saying? He's like, I don't speak English. I don't speak Chinese.
I don't speak Chinese.
Right.
Yeah, and then he responds, Provenza responds, he goes, well, you always sound very fluent when you order takeout, you know. So it's a great line.
Just making fun of
so when he orders when Tao orders Chinese, he sounds fluent to Provenza. So.
Absolutely. You don't know if he's refusing to do the work or if it's the racial barrier. It's left to your imagination, but it's funny.
Yeah. No, well, we have a guy, he just left us, but one of our cops, and he's got a Spanish last name, and they're always like, hey, do you speak Spanish? He's like, nope, I never learned. And it's true, but, you know, we We do have a lot of
It's
people, of
not
course, who speak
uncommon.
multiple languages and all that, but
Yeah.
he's always like,
I got some
was
Irish in
born
me,
there.
but
I
I
was
don't sound at all
born.
Irishy. Yeah, and
You can't do the Irish brogue. So.
you doing? But yeah, it's eye opening, and I like how Tayo, along with Flynn and Provenza, they get extra promotions. I like how when he's going after some of those other troublesome guys who are trying to sue the LAPD, and one of them's, I forget who it was. It was like just a total bad apple who was just like out for blood. And I like how he's just like, okay, you're saying some pretty messed up stuff about me, so let's go over here. I'll play your game. And the guy's like, okay, so what are we going to talk about? And he just, just flat out just gets him in a headlock and just bitch slaps him basically.
Well, they have the where they're old school, and so they've been around the block. So
Raiders like, do not absolutely ever do that again. And I'm like, I know what I was doing. Who was it?
Yeah.
It was a crooked. No. It was. What was it? It was so fun. Oh yeah, it was the disgraced cop Hickman, that the one guy played by Jason Jedrick from Backdraft. It's the sociopathic guy saying messed up stuff. He had been like fired because they figured he was crooked, and then what's so funny is we're trying to figure out who's the main killer killing everybody, and it's like, is it him? He's like, no, but I wouldn't fault you for thinking so.
Yeah.
I liked how Provenza was going after the copycat killer while having his vision impaired. I liked how the squad was taking out a bunch of assassins in season 4 of Crimes, because like the assassins were disguised as police. So Flynn had to fight a hitman after an AA meeting. Sanchez was going after his mom's abusive caregiver, and I'm like, oh man, he wants to kill this guy so bad. He already had a cousin or brother who was shot by a drive-by. He's not going with any more loss. My personal favorite was when Howard was overseeing the team, and they're trying to prosecute an Indian diplomat with, who pulls the whole diplomatic immunity thing. He's like, oh, I'm gonna get you on this. There's the El Paso killer fugitive.
Yeah.
John. I like how Johnson, when she first meets Stroh, she just gets in a elevator fight and just about gnaws his face off, just like with her nails. Howard also had to go after that crooked ICE agent.
Yeah.
I was just like,
yeah, and there was for it though. I mean,
he's pulling a total Terminator where he's just like impersonating people's voices over the phone, and they're going after. And like you said before, just like the kid at the mall, they have no shortage of other bombers and serial, criminals. But I just thought it was interesting because it just didn't feel like they were trying to emulate anything else. They were just like trying to do their own thing on what's been done to death.
Yeah. Because I mean, there's a gazillion cop shows out there and stuff, and you're gonna have
the crime scenes don't feel like the billionth Seven or Bone Collector.
Yeah, they're not super, like, I won't watch Criminal Minds only because I know there's stuff where it's all like, yeah, that's a little too
out there.
real. Yeah, it's out
they
there,
had some
but
bad seasons. Oh my god.
oh yeah, I could definitely see some people are like, oh, I'm a psychopath, I should do that, and you're like, but so I kind of like just the basic murder stuff and all that, so but the way that they write it and everything, I mean, the writing is great. The way that they do the setup and everything.
Totally.
I do have to shout out for Fritz though, because I don't think there's a man alive who would have been as patient with Brenda.
Yeah, Fritz Howard. Yeah, and
I mean that might be the most unbelievable thing, because I got to tell you, I love Fritz, but. Dude, the way that she would not like, oh, hey, honey, how was your day or whatever, and it would just be all about her case. And like he got a promotion and she like had no idea, and then she had to be told about it by Pope, and it was like, oh, why does the Pope know about it? And it's like, well, you don't ask your husband how his day was. So
right.
It just and where she's always like, oh yeah, using him to get her case closed and everything, and he knows it, but and actually sometimes he didn't know, at first he was kind of kept getting bamboozled by her, but he
Right. I was also, I mean, you got to have new characters in all these shows that are exclusive. I was blown away by Sykes, the the mixed female detective on major crimes who used to be in the army. You know who I'm talking about?
Right.
Sykes. Yes, no, maybe. Not making sense.
with Brenda's, and I always liked it
Hold
when
up.
he finally was like,
Hold
Brenda.
up. Hold up.
Yeah.
You're breaking up.
Oh, sorry. How about that?
I was asking you if you were familiar with Sykes.
Oh,
The mixed
Sykes
detective on crimes who used to be in the army. I know they said they didn't get all her designations exactly right, but I just thought it was interesting how
oh, okay, yeah.
kind of like Brenda, she has to deal with all the, she has to help them take down all these different stalkers, and she's a tough cookie her own self.
Yeah, it's why I like the well, I kind of felt bad about Daniels leaving because I liked her and everything, but then, where they did bring in
Yeah. Some new blood. Gives you a better idea about the SIS, the Special Investigations Section, which, we've seen in movies, but it's often not, it's always in a colorful light.
well, for like Daniels, and she was only on 3 episodes, and I was just like, it was almost like they were trying to shoehorn her in maybe as a Daniels replacement, and it just wasn't feeling right. So, but then, going over the major crimes when, he had Sykes come in, so that worked out really well. So, I mean, because, when you have a room full of guys and you're being led by a woman and stuff, you have that weird kind of dynamic. So it's nice to have another girl in there. So, but
there was that.
so.
Yeah. I liked how they had Goldman, who was played by Booger from Revenge of the Nerds.
Oh, yes.
Like, yep, the minute I see you, I want to slap you in the face. You are a pig.
I love him. Yeah, Curtis Armstrong. God, I love him. He's and he plays such sleazy characters all the time.
Yeah, always.
And yeah, he's always sleazy, but he's such a every time you see him, I'm like, oh my God, it's him, it's Booger, so yeah, so when he came in, that was always that I was like, oh, he's great, because like I love Supernatural, and he popped in at Supernatural, and some people hated him. But I loved him. I was like, it's him, it's Booger. So every time he pops up, it's like great.
Yeah, those kind of geeky actors, man. I really dug how they added Hobbs as the main deputy district attorney gal who was helping on crimes. That just gave it more of a legal perspective. Now, like you say, with arranging cases, probably wouldn't be that heavily involved in real life, but hey, it's still intriguing.
Yeah, there's when I was in our forensics unit, I kind of struck up a working relationship with one of our state attorneys.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And he'd call me. Yeah, so he'd call me. He's like, "Hey, I have a guy who's coming in for an arraignment. Can you come over and do some swabs for me?" I was like, "Yeah, no problem." That's so.
All right. Oh, shoot.
Yeah, and if we have a trial coming on, we'll go over and meet up with the state attorney and talk about, hey, this was I had worked on a kidnapping case,
Oh,
and
jeez.
so yeah, it was actually very cool. It was one of my better cases. That was really, really cool. And it was but it was a kidnapping of 2 grown men. And so nobody got hurt, but they under duress. They had to sign over some land property to this bad guy. Yeah, yeah, it was very involved. It was actually it was very interesting. So then so we ended up meeting up with the state attorney, all of the detectives and myself, going over everything that we all did and stuff. So we had a little powwow and stuff like that. So that does happen. They don't normally come to the PD per se. We usually go over to them, but even then it's, but there are some of us who, especially like our homicide guys, where they'll talk to certain DAs and stuff and have more of a personal relationship, but not a thing of where they just keep swinging over to the police department and all that. So but
Gotcha.
but there are things where they'll reach out and you end up having a lot of working relationships, specifically really for homicides, because there's those lawyers that are just specifically going to be doing those trials for the most part, because they cut their teeth on the lower stuff, and as they go up, then they get better, of course, with more practice, and then they'll do all the homicide stuff.
Wow.
So our homicides will connect with them a lot. So
All right.
so but it's pretty cool that it is kind of nice where I think they were trying to do like the law and order side type of thing, where of course you have
Totally.
the cop thing,
Yeah.
then you
And-
get the legal.
Well, and that's just it. It was trying to appeal to some of the other shows, but I liked how much like The Shield, you got all this claustrophobic kind of what's on people's minds, and kind of like Homicide, see them playing pranks on each other, like, hey, someone took my apple.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a. I mean,
Yeah.
Bosch is doing that now with Crate and Barrel. I like how they got a similar kind of foray, and Detective Munch and all those shows on Homicide and SVU was the same deal. Just like
Yeah. I was watching this. I was finally watching The Shield, and they kept taking the one guy's chair and hiding it and stuff like that. But
oh my word, yeah,
yeah, the pranks do happen. It's not a lot, but occasionally something will happen for a little bit. We used to have the most harmless prank we had was somebody brought in a stuffed Black Panther, and it was like about 2 feet tall, and they would
jeez.
hide it. Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty good size stuffy, and they would hide it everywhere in the station. They'd hide it they would hide it around the corner, so you come around the corner and you'd be like, ah. So at one point it did end up in the bureau, and somebody set it up at its own desk with a nameplate and a picture of the Panther family and all that. So yeah, so so there are some pranks that go on and all that stuff, but you kind of have to. You're dealing with a lot of serious stuff, so you have to have some levity in there somewhere. So, but it's good stuff.
I guess.
But yeah. So yeah. Well, when you're dealing with dead people, or you're dealing with people that, hey, somebody beat me up today and stuff like that. When you're dealing with a lot of that stuff, it makes it a little hard. So you got to have that mental break in, to not be totally bringing yourself down and all that. So, so in the police department, you have to have kind of a wicked sense of humor about some stuff, where otherwise you're going to go crazy. So, but yeah, so so they did capture a lot of the stuff that as a police department
you
is.
hear
So
stories about, yeah.
Yeah, so I think they did pretty good. So, but
TNT Mondays. Television's favorite summer drama is back with its biggest season.
I did not kill my family.
New crimes, new confessions, new closer. Cable's #1 series of all time will keep you guessing till the very end.
She was abducted.
She was in your van.
Kara Sedgwick is the closer. See all new episodes Mondays at 9 on TNT. We know drama.
do you have like a top, because I know you do like top 5 stuff and everything. Do you have a top 5?
If I had to list moments, definitely out of all the recurring gags, definitely just lose track of just the numerous times where people are just looking around at like each other. It's just like just so many just like bats across the room. The camera's not even moving around. We're just like seeing a little coverage of them in their cubicles, and just
Yeah.
like it doesn't matter how many phones are ringing. Like if someone does something outrageous, I'm pretty much like take a drink every time like they're seeing someone in Brenda's office and they don't hear the conversation. We don't hear the conversation, but we're getting an idea of what's going on. And they're like, what was that all
Yeah.
about? Oh, something big.
That's fair. Well, you should have a drinking game every time like Pope has to pop in, and then you're just like, where Pope like annoyed, he's like, what? Why? I'm just finding out about this. What's going on and stuff like that. So
Yeah, the assistant chief was a real
yeah,
jerk when he started off, but I liked how they finally just had him look outside the box after a while and stop trying to be a dick to everybody.
backing around. Yeah, look after the, yeah. I liked it when he would always, not always, but when he was defending Brenda, when he was putting himself on the line quite a bit, where he's like, okay, you need this and that, and then the person would leave, and then he's like, Brenda, what are you doing? I mean, you're putting
You're
me in
right.
this bed.
I got homicide on this with robbery homicide, and you're telling
Yeah.
me this and that, and I don't think we can make that work.
Yeah. So and it's nice when you have a boss that's willing to kind of defend your. I mean, and there'd be sometimes where he was like, "No, Brenda, you're gonna need to suck it up on this one. I can't do anything for you or whatever." So,
Right. I'm not
but
risking it. Come too
yeah,
far.
but that's for anybody who has a job anywhere to have a boss to sit there for the most part and be like, "Hey, I'm gonna defend you. I'm gonna look after you and everything else." That's like the best boss that you have there, where you're just like, as opposed to like, I'm just gonna come after you every day, and you're like, oh, well, that's fun.
Yeah, that would have worn its course just from a narrative perspective. So I'm glad they didn't outstay its
Yeah.
welcome.
Yeah. And and this whole thing where it came out about her and Pope having the relationship, and that might have been why, of course, speculation of
Rumors
why
are
he
damaging,
brought.
man.
Oh, it's crazy. I have to say, working at a police department, one of my favorite things that I tell, especially my the new rookies and all that, my rumored life is a way more exciting than my actual real life. Because there's always
man.
yeah. There's actually, there's always rumors about everybody, about everything and everything, and you hear about it later. You're like, oh yeah, I heard a rumor that you did this or you hooked up with this person. Like, I was like, oh really? Wow.
Yeah,
I hope I had a.
sure. Where's this coming
Like,
from?
yeah, because you're like, I hope I had a really good time. It wasn't true, but I hope I had a really good time in this rumor at least, So my rumored life at least had a good time. So. Yeah, but yeah, there's a lot of rumor stuff that happens in the PD. So
I'm sorry.
no, it's all right. It's all part of the job. Where
Yeah.
So, but it does happen, and the relationship stuff does happen, and at the PD, and we've had people where they've got married and then they got divorced, then they marry another coworker, and they're all still working all together, and you're like, okay, hopefully
work,
everybody's
it's not
cool.
easy.
So yeah, with Pope, and they did make him out as a ladies' man, because then he had another relationship with the auditor, and while he was married and stuff, and
yeah, that was pretty cuckoo. Oh, nutty.
I'm sorry, I blanked out for some reason.
No, it's
Sorry
all
about
good.
that.
We're all putting our thoughts together. And I find it even funnier how like you just don't know. Just the minute someone walks in, you're just like, what are they gonna say? What's on their mind? Oh man. And altogether, I mean,
Yeah, it's but yeah, I mean, I just love the show so much, of just everything comes together so well. And I mean, I'm a big fan also of like the First 48, and the best thing about First 48 is always the interview.
Yeah.
Is always in the interview. That's where Brenda, of course, always shines, is in the interview room. So, and it just, to me, that's always kind of the most exciting thing, because that's the showdown between the good guy and the bad guy, just like the old westerns, you know, high noon on the one dirt roadway with the town on the side, everyone ducking for cover because it's the showdown. And the interview room, that is exactly what it is the showdown with the good guy and the bad guy, and who's gonna be able to outwit each other and stuff like that. So
good, bad. I'm the guy with a gun.
Yeah.
Evil Dead reference.
So, you know, so you have the good guy with the gun, bad guy with the gun. Yeah. So, and it's really cool the way that where she just is able to outwit them, even though if think that they're winning, you know, and all that, and then she just kind of springs the trap and all that. So it's just, you know, and of course, unfortunately, it doesn't always go that way in the real world, but it's nice to watch it happen. Of like, oh yeah, that would be nice if that happened at every, you know, every case. So,
Something.
yeah. So, but yeah, it's because that's kind of like getting to the nitty gritty of getting where she just only closes the cases if she's gets a confession, and that's her driving force, where she will do everything and anything, and even betray her husband to a point, you know, lying wise and stuff like that, just for
Modus
that
operandi.
just for that one goal, and like nothing else matters, as long as she can get that confession out and everything. So, and which is her, you know, is also kind of like her downfall in a lot of things too, you know, with the obsession.
Well, and the fact that I like how he picks her over the FBI, and they're always looking at him like, dude, you left us.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. I'm sure at the FBI office, they're like, oh, he's so whipped. He's so whipped. All he, you know, she wears the pants in the family and stuff like that. And, you know, so. And like I said, I mean, he's got the patience of a saint, because I'm not sure there's a lot of people.
Just the more difficult she is, I always got the sense that like that just turns him on even more.
I think so. That seems to be the case.
I just read it in the body language. They're just like looking at each other like, oh, I don't know what it is about you. You drive me crazy, but I have you.
Yes. I mean, right from the beginning, you know, where like they were going for a date, and she's like hiding in the backseat, and she's like, can you just drive me around? When he's like, okay, or we're gonna eat sometime, or you know, so
he's having.
You're on the right path. That is a turn on for him. Maybe just like knowing, watching her in action type of thing or whatever. Yeah.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Maybe it's like.
And doesn't that episode get even nuttier? Because like then they end up doing a case, and they're like, we didn't really have much of a dinner, but I guess this will work.
Yeah, where they just gotta, you know, I mean, well, there was one quick episode, I forget what it was, and there was like a case that was coming in, and she was like, oh, I don't think I can make it, and he goes, no, I already called and canceled the reservations, I already know, you know. So he was already like, yeah, all right, I can see how this is going, you know. This is not gonna happen.
Not my first rodeo.
Yeah, so it's, you know, where he just kind of like, yeah, I already know, I can see the writing on the wall, this is how it's gonna go down and stuff. And yeah, and and her parents were such a delight.
You had
her mom, of course, was so great, but you know, but the mom and dad together, yeah. And you know, where she was just scared to death of the dad, of like, don't tell dad I'm dating you, and it's like, you're the deputy chief of Los Angeles Police Department, and you're scared of his dad.
Well, and that's some personal thing, you know, it's a gender thing. It's a bit about just, you know, however you want it, you're gonna hear them raise hell if they don't approve of your profession. I still I think everyone should see the Thanksgiving episode, even though it ends pretty tragically. But I just like how they're having to have a few people with them, and they're like, "Are we actually going to eat?" I'm like, "I guess we're all on this stakeout together."
Yes, yeah.
Just added
They,
kind of a dark comedy aspect to it. It's just
yeah,
funny.
yeah, they did. Yeah, they did that. Where they incorporated the parents in so well with the storyline of the comic timing and everything, but then
Yes.
the seriousness of it as well. When her dad gets sick, and then her mom passes away and stuff. But it just
Oh man, that was sad too, because it's a random hey, she succumbed to
yeah,
death, and
yeah. And that's the other thing about the show. I touched a little bit. I like how they have the AA thing, but they also touched about, her relationship with her parents, which is something that's not always done in like the crime shows because you don't see a lot of character
instead you
background.
have them, oh, I'm combating drugs. They add a soapy element to it, and here it's like, no, we're getting pretty raw and real.
Yeah. Well, also where she had early set menopause and everything. That's like not. That's
It's
rarely brought
never
up.
talked about.
Yeah, and how she's, how it's affecting her and stuff like that with the, where hot flashes and stuff like that. And that's not like a thing that's like, oh, that's sexy TV. But it's real. It's a real thing. So I did like where they brought in some real subjects into the
To
show
talk
for
about,
them.
yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it
So,
was good.
there's just so many reasons.
I applaud everybody for doing what they did here. I think it was just they can make it heartwarming at times, even.
Yeah, yeah. It just like you had the kid that went home to the parent with the parents because the
Hmm.
brother was shot who was robbing the banks and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
and that was nice. And of course, Sanchez was helping the little kid for a little bit, and then of course Rusty and stuff. And yeah, so it was almost kind of like everybody was just adopting a kid from the station.
He was coming out of his shell. He was realizing, hey, I can be a dad. I'm just afraid of parenthood.
Yeah, yeah.
And it leaves you to fill in the dots. Like, did he have a nasty girlfriend breakup that ruined him and made him more of a hard ass? What happened?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of nice to have where they have different redemptions in their own right for the all the side characters.
Totally.
It just I love all the characters involved. It wasn't even like a thing where they were just mainly in the background type of thing, and you're just like, oh, here's the guy just walking in the background. So with the
Something for
interactive.
everybody.
Yeah. So if you had to, besides Brenda and Sharon, who would your favorite character be on there?
And this is where it's hard because there's lots to choose from. I think I'd hang out with Sanchez. I just like the fascinating aspect to this. I like how we don't often see guys kind of embracing their mental health and stripping down their barriers. But like you say, Provenza, Flynn, and Tayo, and Sykes, and all those guys are all just fun.
Yeah, it's really hard to just pick one. It's just
I find it wild how the Gabriel actor, in real life was also doing private security at public events, and I think that's why he just seems like he just belongs in this scene.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, he well, I saw I would have to hang out with Provenza. I just love him to death. He's just so awesome. Just where he's been around for so long, and so he kind of he knows what he can get away with and stuff like that, and he's got all the stories and from all back in the day and all that. So I would he's kind of like my favorite. Yeah, I would like to hang out with him. So
sweet.
With Lieutenant Daniels.
Yeah.
uh, oh, what's the name of the show? The Alan Tudyk show.
Oh yeah, he was the
Where he's
first
the
one I
alien.
recognized when I saw the Resident Alien trailer. I'm like, oh, awesome.
I was like, when I first watched that, I was like, oh my god, it's Gabriel. I was like, holy cow, and all that. So, and I was following. I followed him after that. I was like, oh my god, because I hadn't thought about him in a while, and I followed him on Twitter, and he had posted a thing where it's him singing, and he's got like a great singing voice. He was like in a musical,
Really?
in some
Wow.
musical, and he was actually singing. I was like, holy cow, that was you, you know. So it was. So it is kind of neat to see all these
Love
guys
these
where
cool
they,
cats. Yeah.
yeah, where they have all these great character actors, yeah, and they have such a long list, and they really should get a lot more love and a lot more attention than what they
Totally
do.
should. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
It's
I mean,
eye-opening, just showing, hey, the talent's here. You just gotta look for it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So but yeah, it's a good show. Everybody should really check it out. I mean, it's just it's not going to like bring you to a mental level or anything like that, but it's definitely not going to dumb you down. So
Yeah, it's not for anyone who's saying, oh, there's nothing good on TV. Oh, there's so much stuff from the last few years that's just due for rediscovery.
Yeah. Well, like, during COVID when things were shut down and, even
I
with the
watched
writer's
this a
strike and
bunch. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's like so much, like I just got done watching The Wire not too long ago because I had never seen, because I had never had, didn't have HBO or anything
I
like
think this
that.
would
So
appeal to some Wire fans, definitely like the Shield, but there'd be others who'd be picky. Oh, I feel it too Hollywoodized. I'm like, well, there's going to be some Hollywoodization, but it does it better than most, I would say.
yeah. So it's
Yeah.
and and I my favorite growing up, or my favorite police procedural was always Homicide: Life on the Streets.
You're right.
Which is a travesty that it's not out streaming, which is really sad.
Yeah, the closest was like on Pluto
I mean, I have
TV.
the
But yeah, the DVD is great, but it's like you say, it's a shame that we can only rely on physical media. No one wants to, despite all this acclaim, remaster it.
Yeah, because then when I watched The Wire, I'm like, oh crap, that's the guy who did Homicide: Life on the Streets.
David Simon, yeah, and I do love, I love David Simon, but he is one of those where he does not like, if you don't get one thing right, he's like, it's not good, and I think he knows as well as the next guy. We all like all kinds of these different crime shows. I would recommend this show, the Closer Major Crimes franchise, if even if you like Hollywoodized stuff like Criminal Minds and CSI. I think you're mainly definitely going to like it if you like Homicide, Law and Order, Bosch, and The Shield. But also, if you love just other stuff like Crossing Jordan, Profiler, Rosalie Niles, it's same kind of dilemma where there's a lot of dry humor, there's a lot of twisted mystery, and there is some cool action and crime elements. Even the Breaking Bad franchise, you can pretty much do a game of that, especially when you get to Major Crimes, is like spot the Breaking Bad actor.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of that, a lot of the kind of crossover. Well, again, love it, and I'm
I
not
saw
trying to push
Skinny
Supernatural,
Pete
but
was one of the
Supernatural, where it
guys.
went on for 15 years, a lot of times they'll be like, oh, hey, that guy was Supernatural, that guy was Supernatural, and all that, and then you see him pop up on stuff.
Someone had to do it.
Yeah. So yeah. So it's kind of neat, so again, yeah, it's all the actors who were on the show are so good, and even though they're not household names per se or anything, they definitely deserve a lot of recognition for doing such a good job of what they did. So
I applaud it all. Yeah.
yeah. So everybody should go definitely check out at least a couple episodes. I always do personally. I do like 3 episodes of a new series just to like, because the first episode's always like, oh, we have to set it up. So a lot of times it's like,
I do applaud the first episode because at least you know what to expect and it catches your attention versus some of the other ones where you're like, not sure how I feel after.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a yeah. I figure by the third episode, because like if it's something where it's kind of like a slow burn type of thing, and it's a slow build up, and you're all that, and you're just like, oh, okay, I'll hang in with it by the third episode. And by the third episode, if I don't like it, then I'm like, okay, I gave it a shot or whatever. But at least by the third episode, I have a little bit more information if it's gonna be something I'm gonna catch my interest and all that. But I mean, with the closer, from the very first episode, I mean, from the very opening, of her coming on the scene, it just really was like, oh, okay, well, this is gonna be really good. So, but
Yeah, it laid it out way better to where even the most impatient would be damned to say, I don't think anything is going to happen here.
yeah, yeah. And of course, the ending was perfect. The way that they closed it out and everything with the purse.
I see some people complain about the major crimes ending, and I'm like, yeah, I found it kind of ballsy. I'd applaud it just for that alone. I don't think I didn't feel like it was like Walking Dead where they're trying to use plot devices to get a cheap rise out of you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing is like, they have a thing where it's like beginnings are easy, but endings are really hard and everything. And
Yes.
there's always, however a show ends, I mean, there's always going to be something like, well, they could have done this better. They could have been that. I mean, anywhere from like The Sopranos to Walking Dead to, any number of things, where it's the very, very last episode. So, MASH, whatever, there's always going to be
God. Yeah.
which was a big, huge event way back.
Back in the day, yeah.
Back in the day, where you're just gonna be like, oh, well, that was great, and then other people are gonna be like, oh, that was horrible. I hated it. Blah blah blah. Seinfeld was another example where a lot of people weren't crazy about the ending and all that. So, so you're always gonna have people who are like, no, they should have done this, they should have done that, and it's like, well, you can't please them all.
No, you really can't.
Yeah, literally, you cannot. So, but so you just try to pick up, and the thing with any show, if you have an episode that's just so incredible and it's just so good, and then the next episode is not, I mean, it's good, but it's not that level, and then a lot of people are like, oh, it was a 12 out of 10 type of thing, and this one's only an 8 out of 10. It's like it's still an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, which is really, really good. I mean, it's not like it's a 2 out of 10, but they're like, no, it should have been, and you're just like, well, I mean, they can't all be 12 out of 10,
They don't need to be your level.
Yeah.
I feel like we just are in a snobby world now. So
I think you're right about that. I think you're definitely right.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's instantaneous gratification of not only just instant gratification, but instant gratification that the way that you want it. I wanted it to be like this, and now I'm gonna have, I'm gonna pout in the corner because it didn't end the way.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, it just like, well, as opposed to like, hey, just didn't like it, whatever, and move on. So, but whatever. Anyway,
you do you, dude.
Yeah, you either like it, you don't, or whatever, and you just, more important things in the world that to be upset about than whether you.
There really is, yeah. There's so many other things.
Yeah, but it is what it is. Whatever people need to do to cope with things, I guess. So
yeah,
and sometimes maybe just maybe complaining about a TV show is a way to kind of deflect from what the real world is, and maybe that's sometimes easier for people, I guess. So
yeah, to an extent, yeah.
So
whatever you need to just kind of let it out of the bag, though.
Yeah. So, but but hopefully this show gets a little bit more love, and hopefully with your podcast today. Hopefully, spread a little more love to it.
Promise.
But
This was great having you on and just doing a deep dive, and we just kind of learned a lot of things on how this really shouldn't be a hard to talk about TV show,
Yeah. Well, I definitely appreciate you having me on. I was very
Anytime.
thrilled, honored that that I got invited. So I was like, oh, so I've been kind of geeking out about it. So I definitely appreciate that.
Probably. Happy to help. Happy to collab. And
your show is.
Sorry, go ahead.
I've been catching up on the episodes and stuff like that, and I love the
nice.
back and so.
Yeah, something for everybody here.
Yeah. I like all the different subjects that you guys cover and everything. So
Try to have something for everybody, not keep them in the corner, because that's what we're noticing too. We had a lot of people who were like, I only want to talk about this or that. And I'm like, that's fine, but we're trying to help everybody here. We're trying to maybe validate the love of this one particular music album or this video game or this movie, TV franchise. Just have something for everybody.
That's the way to do it. There you go. That's the best way to.
It's not easy.
No, I'm sure it's a lot of work. I'm sure
it is, but we enjoy it.
Yeah, well, you're doing good at it. So
all right, I good. Oh, so overall, anything you would like to promote on your end?
No, I'm not a promoter myself. I have my own personal Facebook account type of thing. So I'm very, very boring. But I'll definitely be listening to more of your stuff in the future. And
too nice.
So I'll promote your show. How about that?
Okay, awesome.
So I know people are listening to this, but listen to it more. So but I appreciate it. I appreciate the time.
Totally. This was beyond delight. I don't see how any more detailed how we can be on this very complex procedural. That's again.
I think we covered quite a bit. So
got some thrilling moments, got some funny moments, got some gritty, plausible moments, and then.
Yeah. So I appreciate all that. So good views.
Lovely. All right. Well, stay safe.
Awesome. I appreciate it. I mean, this was fun. So hopefully,
what we try.
All right.
Try to make everyone happy.
We'll return after these messages.
The Jacked Up Review Show podcast is honored to be part of the Blind Knowledge Podcast Network. Join anytime, talk the talk, and enjoy yourselves. There's something enlightening for everyone with this crowd of cool cats. Check them out.
Hey, it's Brent Pope, the host of Breakfast with Brent Pope. You've seen me on some of your favorite TV shows saying things like, "Give it up, Jimmy. You got to sink this putt to win." On Breakfast with Brent Pope, I sit down with guests from the entertainment world, and we do it all over breakfast. Or should I say Brentfast? Every week on Brentfast, you get inside Hollywood info and tips, great breakfast recs and booty debates. Most of all, you get the most delightful 30 minutes of your week. So dig in. It's Brentfast time. Listen at Brentfast.com, Apple Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are found.
Do you ever find yourself thinking about who would win in a fight between Goku and Superman? Hi, I'm James Gavsey, and on the Who Would Win show, me and my co-host Ray ignore anything important happening in the outside world and debate fictional battles between characters from comics, movies, and video games.
We got a new show every week, and almost always am I the winner.
Yeah, not true, Ray.
In the past, we've discussed such matches as Captain America versus Darth Vader, Solid Snake versus the Iron Giant, classic matchups like RoboCop versus Terminator, and even the Muppets versus Sesame Street.
That one was crazy. So if you're a fan of geek culture and love a spirited debate, check out the Who Would Win show wherever you get your podcasts, or check us out at whowouldwinshow.com.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram
The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up